All right, but to recap what we did yesterday is we learned how to factor. And what that means is kind of like the opposite of distributing. So if you remember, distributing is when you take the number that's outside parentheses and multiply them by all the numbers inside, right? So we practice that. But then factoring is like working backwards. So that's like being given 3a squared plus 7a and breaking it back into a parentheses 3a plus 7. So it's the opposite of distributing. The word factor means something that is being multiplied. So your answer should look like things that are being multiplied together. So we'll do a few examples. Oh, and friendly reminder, if something cannot be factored, then it's called prime. Now, there's very few answers on your worksheet and on the notes that are prime. So hopefully we run into one of those situations, you can see that. But a lot of the time, kids will write prime for like a lot of them, but like it is factorable. So we'll see. All right, if you don't know how to factor, and there's plenty of factoring methods, and it depends like what the problem looks like for which one you use. But first, we're factoring by GCF. So GCF stands for greatest common factor. Hopefully that sounds familiar. It's like the biggest number that can be divided into a number, and like the same number. All right. To identify your GCF, here's some steps. They're all typed out for you. I explained them yesterday, and I did some examples if you want to watch that video. But first, you look at the coefficients, the numbers in front of the variable. Find the GCF between those numbers. Then you look at the variables. If they have the same letter in each term, then you can factor out that letter. And to know how many you can, you always take the one with the smallest exponent. All right, you would put that number outside parentheses, whatever your GCF is, put it outside parentheses. Inside is what you get from dividing each term by the GCF. I know it's a lot, but we can examples. But you should always be able to check your work by distributing. So if I distribute the answer, then I should get the original problem. All right, so let's do a few examples from the note sheet that we did not do yesterday. So let's look at number 7. All right, first look at the numbers in front of the variable, the coefficients. I have 21 and 3. Always see, like between the two numbers, see if the smaller number could be the GCF. The GCF could never be bigger than the smallest number. Now, does 3 divide evenly into 21? Yeah, so that means 3 is going to be part of my GCF. The GCF you put outside parentheses. But first, before I put the parentheses, you need to check to see if you can factor out any variables. So if I can, that means it's in every term. So like, do both of these have a C? No, so I can't factor out a C. Can I factor out a D? Yes. And so if it's present in each term, take the one with the smaller exponent. And these ones, it happens to be the same. So it's D to the first, D to the first. Smallest exponent is the D to the first. Okay, so that's my GCF. Questions on that? All right, that goes outside parentheses. Inside is what we get from dividing each term by the GCF. Now remember, if I have the same thing on top and bottom of a fraction, what happens to it? It cancels out to 1. So like in that first term, the D's will cancel because they're both D to the first. In the second one, the 3's cancel and the D's cancel to 1. All right, but let's just do the first term real quick. What's 21 divided by 3? And then we still have a C. There's nothing in the C is being divided by, so it's still there. All right, and then again, this canceled over here. Does that mean I put nothing right there? What do I put? -1. So the minus sign did not go away. But the 3's turned into a 1 because it's the same on top and bottom. The D's turned into a 1 because it's the same on top and bottom. All right, and even if you don't necessarily check every answer by distributing, you should at least check it like mentally. See like, okay, is 3D times 7C 21CD? Is 3D times -1 -3D? All right, that should be the original problem if you did it right. So questions? All right, which other one on the note sheet looks kind of difficult? 11. All right. So look at the numbers in front first. In this case, if it's not written, the number in front, what's the number? All right. Well, if it's a 1, nothing is going to be smaller than 1 in these. So that's going to be the median. And it really doesn't make a difference. Now look at the variables. Do I have an A in each of them? So I can factor at least one A out. What's the smallest exponent on the A in this problem? 1. So if it's not written, the exponent is implied to be 1. Now, can I factor a B from each of these? Do they both have B's? So then you can't. All you can factor out is an A. So that'll go outside the parentheses and you erase the exponent of 1 because you don't really need to write it. And then inside is what we get from dividing each term by our GCF, A. We have the same thing on top and bottom here for the A's at least. So for the first term, I just have B. For the second term, A divided by A is 1. So then I have a -1. There. And then if I were to distribute A times B is AB, A times -1 is -A. I do get the original problem. All right, let's pick a longer one with like different types of exponents. Do you guys have a preference on any of these down here? Number 24. Okay. So this one, number 24 is the one we're looking at. We have 3 coefficients, so look at them all at the same time. I'll highlight them for you. So we have a 3, a 9, and a 15. Always, well, think to yourself, don't say it out loud yet. Think to yourself, what's the biggest factor that you can think of that divides evenly into all of them? All right, if that's hard for you to think about. Look at your smaller number, which in this one is the 3. Does 3 divide evenly into all of them? So then 3 is my GCF. Well, it's part of it at least. Now look at the variables. So again, your GCF can never be bigger than the smallest number. All right, do these all have an A? Yeah, and to know how many I can factor out, take the one with the smaller exponent. So what's smaller, A cubed, A squared, or A to the first? Okay, so we can factor out one of the A's. Do they all have B's? What's the smallest exponent on a B? Good. Okay, we have B squared, B cubed, B to the 4th. Smallest one is B squared. Can I factor out a C? How many? So we have C to the 1st, C to the 2nd, C to the 3rd. Which one's smallest? Okay, good. So then this whole chunk of stuff right here is my GCF. Questions on that? All right, then you divide your GCF from each term. I might have to do this off to the side so that it looks nicer, but that's what you do is now divide each term by your GCF. Right, so everyone see how the denominator of each problem I wrote here is the GCF. All right, whatever we get from that, we're gonna put in the parentheses. So again, if you have the same thing on top and bottom, it cancels, so the 3's cancel. The b squareds in this one cancel, and so do the c's, because they're the same exponent. These ones have different exponents. So for this, you have to remember your quotient rule, one of the exponent rules that we learned. That says if I have the same base, what do I do with the exponents? I subtract them. So if I have a cubed and a to the first, what's going to be my new exponent on the a? Good. Then you do the rest. Nothing cancels in the second term. What's -9 divided by 3? -3, so for -3. A squared divided by a. B cubed divided by b squared. B, remember, subtract them, 3 minus 2 is 1. C squared divided by C. And then now we're on the last one. So see if anything cancels. So we have 2a to the first. And that's it. That's all that cancels in that one. What's 15 divided by 3? And it's positive, so put +5. B to the fourth divided by b squared. And c cubed divided by c. And not really fit that, I would do. I'll rewrite it down. Okay. So yeah, that's what you do. And then if you're ever wanting to check your work, distribute, see if you get the original problem. So any questions on that? Okay. So feel free, especially if like you were absent yesterday or you're still just confused, feel free to ask me questions. Right now, what you're working on is the practice. So make sure you're looking at the right page. I don't want you completing the rest of the note page for your practice. This is your practice. And it's evens or odds. So that means like if you're doing the odds, cross out all the evens, right? Should be every other problem that you're doing. Question? I do think you have enough time in class today to finish it, so I will check it like in the last 5 minutes, whatever you got done. And then if you want to resubmit, you can upload to Schoology, just that's on